It is the Martha Zoller Show, and one of my favorite things to do is to talk education. I do serve you as the 9th District Representative of the State Board of Education, but I'm here today with Will Schofield, who's our superintendent, and Rhonda Samples, who is, what's your title, Rhonda? I never know.
Executive Director of CTAE.
Yes, right. So I've known Rhonda for years. I first met her when I was helping Will Schofield out with the Honors Mentorship Program, which was, I guess, almost 20 years ago. So it is so great to have them here today. And I got a picture earlier this week or last week of the first cow that was processed in the CTAE program under the watchful eye of the Department of Agriculture. I loved that. And I said, we got to get together and talk about this. So welcome, you guys.
It's so good to be here, Martha, and I can't thank you enough. I tell people all the time, I'm a dad way before I'm a superintendent. Thank you for serving on the State Board of Education. I know it's a thankless job. I've known a number of individuals who do, and it's an extremely important job. The direction our educational system takes in this state matters to every family, and so thank you for doing that.
Yeah, and I was a little annoyed when the governor told me he wanted me to do it for a year, and then when they swore me in, this term was 7 years, and then I realized why, because it took me about 3 years to actually figure out what I was supposed to be doing, right? And then now I feel like in my 4th year, I'm kind of in my stride, and I understand what's going on, and it's really in a good place right now. So I understand now why they're 7-year terms, because it's so complicated. And I tell you, I still break out in a sweat when I have to do a vote on multi-billion-dollar contracts. I mean, it's like, it is shocking to me how much money we spend. And it's not the case that we don't necessarily need to. It just seems like on the federal level, especially, there's too many strings attached. But that's a discussion for another day. Tell people what CTAE is, Rhonda.
CTAE stands for Career, Technical, and Agriculture Education. And so it offers a broad, lots of pathways, so many opportunities for students that they can explore and find their passion as to what they're going to do after high school.
Let me add a little to that, Martha. First of all, I'm not into acronyms, and as you found at the State Board of Education, education has more acronyms than you can shake a stick at. CTAE means getting folks ready for the next 50 years of their life. You asked Rhonda what her title was. Rhonda is the best, and I mean the best, workforce developer on the planet. She is always looking for new opportunities to give Hall County students an opportunity to just peek over the horizon and see where the job opportunities are going to be. And I would put Rhonda and her team up against absolutely anybody on the planet when it comes to providing opportunities to get kids ready for the next 50 years of their life in living the American dream that you and I think so highly of.
So I know this is a little high level before we get into the nitty gritty, but how do you make that expandable? Are we doing enough, one, in the state of Georgia, and two, in the country, to make this expandable? Because we need these kinds of workers. You go to any small town in America, and the people that actually run the town are the guy that owns the insurance agency, the guy that owns the plumber shop, the guy that owns the HVAC. And when I say guy, I mean it generically. I mean somebody who does that. Are we doing enough, and what could we do better?
Well, and the answer to that is absolutely not. We're not doing enough. For 50 to 75 years, what we've believed is a manufacturing style of education built on your chronological age. And we basically take 53 million boys and girls in this nation, and we say, depending on how old you are, you're going to do about the same thing as other 7-year-olds do for about 6.5 hours a day, and we know it doesn't work. Put on top of that the era that we went through, which I affectionately call No Child Left Untested, where we thought that the way to excellence was to compete with the Asian tigers when it came to mathematics and science. I got this little secret I need to tell people. We've never competed with the Asian tigers. It's a different culture. It's a different philosophy. There is a reason that the United States of America has 80% of the Nobel Prizes in the history of the Nobel Awards, and that is because we've always been the entrepreneurs, we've been the dreamers, we've been the individuals who are willing to take a risk and start a business. And if we're going to try to make ourselves like the rest of the world and use that measuring stick, I'm afraid the American dream will be lost. We need to teach people how to do something, help them find their passions, and that's what CTAE does.
So, Rhonda, workforce development. How does that play into when you decide about programs? Do you have to wait for the state to come in? And I'm guilty of that. Do you have to wait for the state to come in to say we're going to fund this program, or do you go to them with ideas?
We can certainly go to the state with ideas, and we recently just did that. We saw a need in our culinary program to expand it. We have 3 chefs at Lanier College and Career Academy, and so we just went to the State Department and asked them to initiate a bacon and pastry pathway. And our instructors were instrumental in writing those standards, and it recently just got approved, and so we will be opening bacon and pastry. And if you think about what we've done in our community lately with the downtown area and so forth, you can see the need for bacon and pastry. So we will start it this fall.
So I'm a woman of a certain age, and my children are from 32 to 42. My son just had his 42nd birthday yesterday. And I'll admit, I was one of those parents that thought, my kids should go to high school, then go to college, then maybe get a graduate degree and do all that kind of stuff. About while they were kind of in mid-high school is when I first got introduced to these kinds of programs, because we always thought about it. I mean, when I was going to high school in DeKalb County in the 70s, it was, you either had a college path or a technical path, and never shall the twain meet, right? So I think there's work parents have to do. We need to retrain ourselves that every kid doesn't have to go on to college. We also have to understand what's out there. So how important it is to include parents in all of this. How do you get the information to parents?
And it's even deeper than parents, Martha. It's a cultural lie that we've told children for the last 50 years. And that is that if you do anything other than get a 4-year liberal arts college degree, you are somehow less than. It is time that we speak from the rooftops the truth to students. And the truth is that individuals with high demand 2-year technical skill degrees are out-earning individuals with master's degrees with social science degrees, and it's been that way for 10 or 15 years. If you want to go to school and get an English degree and teach English at your local junior college for the rest of your life, God bless you, that's wonderful. We all have different passions. We all have different abilities. But to somehow look down on a child who wants to turn a diesel mechanic wrench and make $125,000 a year coming out of a technical program, to look down on someone who wants to go into healthcare science and with a 2-year degree come out making $75,000, $80,000 a year in the exploding field of medical science, to look down on individuals that want to run large equipment, and by the way, large equipment operators, logistics, some of those fields that you don't necessarily need to get a 4-year college degree to participate in, is just really unfortunate for the next generation. So it is parents, but it's deeper than parents. I mean, educators don't get invited to dinner parties, but if we did, I suspect the conversation always would come around to, what are your kids doing? And the individuals who aren't able to say our kids are at some college somehow seem apologetic. Well, my kid is actually getting a 2-year degree in cybersecurity, and we ought to be celebrating that. We ought to be heralding that, and instead we're still fighting this 75-year-old syndrome of there's something less than if you don't get a 4-year college degree.
So, Rhonda, we were talking before we got on the air that that we're going to be doing some of these introductions to these programs, meaning the state board has voted for the curriculum to do some introduction to some of these programs in elementary school and middle school, and things like teaching construction concepts using the math standards and things like that as an example. How do we communicate to kids? So say a kid comes into whatever grade it is, and how does the school, the counselor, I don't know what the process is. How do they communicate and let kids and parents know what the options are?
Well, we've done a lot of work in this area to let our students and parents know what pathways we offer. We work at the middle school with the counselors. We have pathway charts that we put out there so that everybody knows what pathways are offered at the high school level. Of course, the middle schools go up to the high schools and they visit those programs. We have elementary students that go up to the high schools and they see those programs. Our work-based learning students go down to the elementary schools and they teach about career clusters. Several years ago, that was done around the state. That is not a requirement now, but our board still wanted us to do that. So we go in and we teach about the different clusters in first grade, second grade, third. And by the time they finish the fifth grade, they've heard about all the career cluster areas that we have pathways in. We do career fairs, just numerous things that we try to educate parents and students about. We're always recruiting and getting that information out.
We're going to take a break right now. When we come back, we'll continue talking with Rhonda Samples and Will Schofield. We'll be back. It is the Martha Zoller Show. That was the Bibb County Superintendent talking about their first day of school. And we're talking about school today, too, with Will Schofield and Rhonda Samples. And look, obviously schools need to change. And I think we're doing as good a job here in Hall County as almost anywhere in the country as far as creating a school system that has lots of options. You know, you and I disagree a little bit on school choice, Will, but what I think it does is make public schools more competitive. And I certainly think that's what's happened here in Hall County. We have charter schools, we have lots of options, we have choices. I mean, if you're a kid in Hall County, you ought to be able to follow your dream in almost any direction you want to.
Absolutely, and one of the things that we will stake our flag on in Hall County is, you know, there's an old Max Lucado book called Cure for the Common Life, and I think I'm the only individual who's ever read it. But Max talks about the importance, whether you're 5 or whether you're 75, of understanding and realizing your sweet spot, and that's the intersection of your passions and your gifts. And for someone like me that believes that all 8.5 billion people on this planet were created for a unique purpose, we do far too little of that in public education. We believe beyond a shadow of a doubt that the choice we want to offer boys and girls is an opportunity to discern what their sweet spot is so they don't turn around, wake up at 50 years old with this blank look on their face, working for a paycheck, waiting for a pension, hating what they do every day. And quite honestly, I know a lot of 50-year-olds walking around hating what they're doing every day, or at the very best, enduring what they're doing every day. That was never the plan. We believe we have an opportunity to help children discern a vision for themselves between the age of 5 and 18, figure out what it is that they're excited about, what they're gifted at, and give them a head start on getting there. That should be the job of education.
Rhonda, if parents want to know more about what they can explore for their children, because parents are busy too. I mean, they don't, you know, they've got a lot going on. How can they interface with the system?
Well, one of the things they can do, if they go to our website, hallco.org, and they look up CTAE, they can find all of our pathway charts, all of our programs of study. There's more information on every pathway that we offer in the district, which currently we are offering 62 different pathways. If they're interested in partnering with us with dual enrollment with Lanier Technical College, they can go to LCCA's website, and there they will find all of the information about all of those certificates. But if they want to talk to somebody in person, Martha, all they have to do is they can contact a counselor. That counselor can put them in touch with an assistant principal that oversees the CTAE programs at all of our high schools or at the middle schools. They can certainly ask to see a work-based learning coordinator. All of that information's on our website. They can certainly contact me, and I'll put them in touch with the correct person.
Yeah, because I think this is just really what is biggest problem is communication, understanding how we can expand this. You know, I'm sitting here thinking, you know, that we've just got to do a better job talking about school. No matter where we go, we've got to be a great expander. That's kind of the word I'm using today. A great expander of what we communicate relating to schools, because we do a great job here in Hall County. Now, a lot of people complain about how much it costs, and I think you did a great job in a video that you sent out recently explaining kind of that relationship between what things cost and what you're able to provide. So I appreciate you for that. But what do you say to the person, Will, that says, oh, we got all these Taj Mahal schools, we got all these things we don't need, you know, all this kind of stuff, you know, we just need to be teaching reading, writing, and math.
Well,
and I know you hear that every day.
Oh, we hear it every day, and we hear it from my own generation. And I think people your and my age have a tendency to put on some rose-colored glasses, look in the mirror, and think back and hearken to a day when school was just wonderful for everybody. Can I remind you that in the 1950s and 60s, only about half of the kids in schools actually graduated from high school, and that was okay at that time because the job market was demanding people who would do physical labor, and there were places for everyone. But when individuals say we should just be teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic, number one, certainly we should be teaching literacy. Everyone needs to know how to read, write, speak, and that is just fundamental to any job you possibly could want. But our job market today has become so much more complex. We need to embrace the idea that an individual who graduates from high school today, by the time they turn 45, futurists are suggesting they will have changed careers 12 times. And it's not because this generation can't stick with something. It's because the job market is changing so rapidly that the careers of the year 2030 that may lead the way haven't even been invented yet. So one of the things we know beyond a shadow of a doubt is we need to look at learning differently. We're all going to have to be lifelong learners. We're going to have to retool ourselves. We're going to have to remake ourselves. And so getting young people interested in their passion, knowing what those passions are, and again getting them on that trajectory is so important. And so we can go back 50 years and we can teach the same thing we used to teach, and we can create our grandmother's schools, and we will do a tremendous disservice to the next generation.
So, Rhonda, you've been on the cutting edge of this issue kind of from the beginning. What is it about you that allows you to be that kind of educator? Because, you know, you're looking for the next idea all the time. Were you like that as a kid? Were you like, what is it about you? And then what's the next steps? What are you looking at next?
Well, I think, Martha, that I was a part of Career Tech when I was in high school, and I had an educator that had a lot of influence on me. I was in the marketing program. And so when I started my career in education, I was a marketing teacher. And so it's just that passion. I love CTAE. I see what CTAE can do for students. I see the success stories. Even after they graduate, we follow some students. And so I just see how CTAE can change a person and how a student can get involved in some of these CTAE programs and these different pathways, and they have a future. And so, and in looking at what's next, I would say we're always looking. What else? What does our community need? We do surveys. We look at where the need is. For instance, we will open a brand new welding lab this fall. And so in conjunction with Lanier Tech, students can earn 2 different welding certificates. And the reason we did that is because every student that comes through that program, we can put them to work.
Yes, so I used to be on the board for the Jekyll Island Foundation, and through that, the guy that owned all the hotels down there was on the board with me. And I found out that they just couldn't hire anybody. They were having a terrible time. So I got with Barbara Ware, and I said, we need to be doing hospitality down in Brunswick. You know, figure out a way to do it and train kids down there. And sure enough, we put a great program together, put them together. The hotel owner helped fund some of it, got it together. And there's a kid from our program now that started right out of high school as a night manager to a hotel and is now at 21 running one of the biggest hotels down in Jekyll Island, one of our Georgia students. That's the kind of thing that you can do if you embrace this. When we come back, we got one more segment with Will Schofield and Rhonda Samples. It is the Martha Zoller Show. We're here with Will Schofield and Rhonda Samples, and we've been talking about CTAE, which is Career Technical Agricultural Education, right? Did I get that right?
Correct.
Close enough. Anyway, so ask your student about it. Have your student ask their school about it, because you can, if your kid's not happy, you can find a niche. But, Will, you wanted to clear something up, that you're not anti-university education.
You know what? I actually took a little college. I wasn't all that good at it. But there are some jobs in this country where you need some college, and you need to do very well at it. If you're going to be an engineer, if you're going to be a doctor, if you're going to be a registered nurse, praise God that you have an opportunity to go to a 4-year degree. I just think that we have spent so much time over the last 75 years talking about everybody ought to go get a college degree, when in fact only about 1 in 5 jobs in this nation require a college degree. And we're seeing even from companies like Google now that are telling young people, skip college, come to us, we'll teach you what you need to know at Google University. And I think we'll see more and more of that in terms of, you know, it's the old FedEx, Walmart, just enough, just in time. And that's what education needs to look like. We need to be nimble. We need to be quick on our feet. And so I'm not anti-college. I'm pro putting yourself in a position to be successful. and living out the incredible American dream that I still believe in wholeheartedly.
And I will tell any student that, and any person, that if you can write a sentence, a paragraph, or a page consistently and well, that you will always have work. Because everybody's got content. Everybody's got to have somebody that can do that. And the biggest thing I see is that people don't know how to write. And that's part of literacy, right? But it's also something important we have to do. Now, Rhonda, your situation too is that some of the jobs, people think of CTAE as, these are all technical jobs. No, you have college path jobs also.
We do. We have probably 15 different healthcare science pathways. We have engineering pathways. We have marketing pathways. All of those require a 4-year education. So we have a lot of those 62 pathways that they can go. They can certainly go the technical route, or they can go the 4-year college route.
So we're going to get into a couple of controversial topics here for our final few minutes with Will and Rhonda.
I don't do controversy, sorry, Mark.
Yeah. So I want to talk about this AP African American history controversy that happened over the last couple of weeks. And I'll tell you my view of it. I think it was poorly communicated. I think they shouldn't have waited till the week before school started. I think we had a school board meeting 2 weeks before. We could have been included in this decision, even though he did have the right to make the decision. I personally don't like AP classes because they're not available to everyone. Now, in Hall County, we pay the test fee, but every county's not like that, so it's an uneven playing field. I'd much rather have a course that's available to everyone that everyone could take. So I'm not wedded to the whole AP American history or any AP class for that matter. But your thoughts on what you've seen transpire in the last couple of weeks?
Well, and again, I probably should be much more aware, but I haven't paid a lot of attention to it because in general in Hall County, this school district does not belong to me. It doesn't belong to a board of education. It doesn't belong to our teachers or principals. It belongs to this community. And what has driven course offerings in our community is what our boys and girls need. So if we come to the conclusion that we need a course in African American studies, then by all means, whether there's one offered at the state level or not, we'll offer it. If we need a course on Native American studies, we'll offer it. If we need a course, and I'm probably not supposed to say this, on Caucasian studies and what's happened over the last 150 years, we'll offer it. So I haven't paid a whole lot of attention to it. We try to stay out of those things that, quite honestly, appear to be a whole lot more bombast than they are substance. And if you want a course on African American studies, Hall County community, by golly, we'll find a way to offer it. But we're not going to go out of our way to get involved in a controversy like that.
So you've been very involved in mental health training for your school, for your students, as well as for your employees. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, first and foremost, and I think Alvin Wilbanks, a dear friend of mine who was superintendent in Gwinnett County for 25 30 years. Neither one of us have Native American roots, but we chuckle and call ourselves the last of the Mohicans because we actually thought that our job was to teach literacy, to teach numeracy, to teach career skills, to teach you what it means to be a citizen of this incredible country. And I was late to the party when it comes to emotional wellness. You know, one of the things I've witnessed in my 38 years in education is a nation that seems to be going off the chains. I have never seen so many people so emotionally dysregulated. And I'm not talking about just students. I'm talking about students. I'm talking about teachers. I'm talking about parents. I'm talking about community members. And we can even look at the data. I mean, just since COVID, and it was already at a chaos level, but since COVID, the level of challenges when it comes to trauma, mental health, emotional wellness are up 300%. I mean, I don't care how precocious you are of a learner. If your mind is somewhere else, if you've got such severe issues going on, you're not going to be learning anything. You know, we talk about the tremendous tragedies that have happened across the country, and it's not just been at schools. It's been at malls. It's been at manufacturing plants. The only common theme you can come up with for the individuals who've participated in these horrific events have been that they have been emotionally unstable and they haven't been getting the help that they need. So we have doubled down. Your Board of Education has said we have some work to do in front of us. We need to get people help when they are emotionally dysregulated. 1 in 5 Americans have a diagnosed mental health situation. 7 in 10 adults in this country are doing life differently because of trauma they experienced as children. And for us to pretend that's not part of an educational system, to give individuals the skills, not the therapy, the skills that they need to get through a life that can tend to be challenging and chaotic, we think would be Pollyannish.
But you've instituted a program that's been very successful, that's reduced the number of incidences at Hall County schools, because I remember you telling me about it and saying you didn't want to lock your schools down. You didn't want to make them fortresses because we know who the people are. They're people that we know. They work for us. They're students, whatever, that are going to do us harm, but we need to avoid that.
And again, it's not an either or.
No.
I'm all for hard targets. I think we ought to have schools that are hard to get into if you don't belong. But we can look at 30 years of data from the Secret Service and realize that's not the common denominator of keeping our schools safe. The way to keep our schools safe, the way to keep our communities safe, is to deal with these individuals who are struggling. And today maybe it's not you and I, Martha, but we know how life comes around the corner. Tomorrow it may be. And we need to become much more comfortable with saying, I'm not okay. I've got some things going on in my life. I need some help. And again, it's not just a program. It's tier one. It's for everyone. It's a little more for individuals who need a little more. And for some people, it's therapeutic help by professionals. And I'm proud of the fact that we now have agreements with 17 local mental health providers where when a child is struggling with a mental health issue, we can get the parent and that provider put together, and if they have no money, we'll take care of it, but we're going to try to get you the help you need. It breaks my heart that the average time from the onset of mental illness in this country and an individual getting their first help is a decade. And what that means is there's a lot of individuals going their entire life without any help, and we can do better than that.
So in California, they've just instituted a program where basically if a child is dealing with identity issues or body dysmorphia related to their sex or anything like that, that they can go around the parents and they can go ahead and treat children a certain way and not let their parents know about it. To me, that's just a travesty. I mean, I'm tired of parents being portrayed as being bad. Okay, there are some bad parents out there, but most of us just want what the best for their child. And if we're doing something wrong, we want to know it. Most parents, okay? So what's your thoughts and how does Hall County Schools handle these kinds of issues? Because I'm sure we're not void of this issue.
You're gonna get me to come out of my chair. One of the issues that you just mentioned that I read about, and that is that in certain parts of the country, we believe bureaucratic educators, somehow know better than parents. Not just know in Hall County. Parents are the primary educators of their children. We tell our people all the time, we don't do secrets with parents. If there's something going on with a child, we better be communicating with those parents and letting them know and giving them an opportunity to deal with those parents. I cannot imagine if after the fact I had been told that my child was dealing with some really deep issues, and maybe it would have been a gender identity issue, and that individuals at school knew about it and didn't tell me, Houston, we'd have a problem. We are not the primary educators of these children. We are here to support these parents and these families, and I may be gone tomorrow, but while I'm here today, parents are the primary educators. We don't do secrets with parents.
Yeah, and you can't do secrets with parents. There's a tragic story in Miami where a student committed suicide, and the parents didn't know that they knew she was going through issues, okay, but they didn't know that the school was facilitating this child to live a different life at school than she was living at home. And he said, the father, distraught, said, if I had known, I would have tried to do something about it. Yes. I remember many years ago, there was a young man that was in school with my daughter who was having some issues with his identity, and he didn't think his parents understood. And I remember him talking to me one day because he'd come over to our house, and all that. Our house was kind of the house that all the kids came to, and I said, you know what I see is your parents trying to understand. They're at every one of your rehearsals. They're at every one of your shows. They bring flowers on your performances and give them to you. They're there. I know who your parents are. I said, I think they're doing the best they can with the situation they're being presented at. And he said, you know what, Ms. Zoller, I never thought about it that way. And that's why you need not only schools, parents, friends, people. Kids need to feel safe to talk to people. And because we've got collective information, I say this every day on the show. You need to vote, you need to parent your children or the children that are in your lives, and you need to have face-to-face conversations.
Amen.
If we did those three things, the world would be a much better place.
Yes, it would. And the one thing you left off the list, but I know your heart, so I know it's there, is those parents love those children. Ultimately they want what's best for those children. We can say that very offhandedly as school employees. Oh, I love this child. You love that child, but at the end of the day, they go home. At the end of the year, they leave, and they won't be in your life anymore. Parents care deeply. It is a sacred honor to be a parent, and we honor that relationship, and that is that parents have all the rights when it comes to the Hall County School District.
So if people want to know more about any of the things we talked about today, how can they find out?
Well, first and foremost, I know this isn't very 2024ish, but you can always pick up the phone and call your school principal and say, hey, I've got some questions about fill in the blank. And that principal may not be the individual to give you the information, but they'll sure put you in touch with the person who is. I'm the same way. If you see me in the grocery store, and it happens every day, hey, tell me more about, I'll probably say, well, I don't know all that much about it, but let me put you in touch with the person who does. So, it's old-fashioned, but pick up the phone, call your school principal, say, hey, I'd like to know a little more about one of these career programs when it comes to agri-science, when it comes to metal fabrication, and we will certainly get you in touch with the people you need to talk to.
Will Schofield, Rhonda Samples, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Martha, for being a champion of education.
Thank you so much.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll go up to the top of the hour.